Yeah.
It's an awesome God he
Got 'em.
reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our
God
is
is
an
awesome. Our God is awesome. Let's go.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Chaotic Serenity. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you guys. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is a book that changed my walk with Christ in a very meaningful way. So at this point in my life, and we're going back to about, I was probably around, give or take, 25 years old. Yeah, so this was back around 2005-ish, somewhere around there. And I had not really been walking closely with the Lord for quite some time. And I decided to start getting back into the Bible, into the Word of God. And I was taking my Bible with me to work and reading it on my lunch break in the break room at work. And a girl, fellow coworker, had noticed me reading it. And she said, "Oh, hey, I just read this book. It was really good, and I think you might like it." I said, "Okay, well, what kind of book is it?" She said, "Well, it's a fiction book, but it's Christian fiction. And I just think you'll get a kick out of it. It's really cool." I said, "Okay, well, if you bring it in, I'll take a look at it. I'll read it, sure." So this girl, her name was Kristen, she brings in the book. And this book is called Safely Home, and it's by an author named Randy Alcorn. Some of you are probably familiar with who that is. He's a great Christian author. And so this book called Safely Home, I'm reading this book, and the premise is that there is one character who is kind of the main character, and he is out of college. He is living his life. He's got a career, and it kind of looks back at his college life and a roommate that he had at college, right? So they were both Christians. They were both believers when they were in college. This guy, after college, ended up kind of wandering away from the Lord and not really following God. The other roommate ended up going to be a missionary over in China. I don't know if you guys know, but there are a number of countries in the world where Christianity is basically illegal, where you can get killed for it. There's a number of places where it's outlawed. There's a number of nations where people are hostile towards you if you are a believer in Jesus Christ. And China is one of those places where there's a lot of persecution that goes on, and there's been a lot of underground churches that have kind of formed over the years. But anyway, so this one character who ended up going to be a missionary, he goes over to China, and he's trying to smuggle Bibles, trying to do the Lord's work over there. And he is involved in a number of various house churches where the people there would have to meet in somebody's house or in somebody's basement, and oftentimes in the middle of the night, so that nobody would catch wind of what was going on, because they didn't want to get in trouble, or worst case scenario, killed. So when this book takes place, you've got the one roommate who is now over in China as a missionary. You've got this other guy, this other roommate, and he is kind of a successful businessman, working his way up in the dog-eat-dog business world, climbing up the corporate ladder. And so the book is kind of about just the different walks that these guys chose in life, and it kind of weaves their stories back together until they kind of meet again one day under some not so great circumstances. But anyways, this particular scene in the book that I wanted to talk about, and try to immerse yourself in this as I describe it. Try to put yourself there, okay? Imagine that you are living in a country or in a place where Christianity is not legal, where you could be killed for it, and you had to go worship in secrecy for fear that you would be put to death, or that your family would be, or that your friends or your loved ones would be, right? So you have managed to get kind of a circle of friends that are all believers. You managed to get together and schedule out a certain time, once a week, once a month, where you would go meet in someone's basement and you'd be able to study the Word. And, let's just pretend that you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You're out in the sticks. You're not in the middle of some hustling, bustling city. You're out in the middle of nowhere. You may not have a vehicle for transportation. You may have to ride a bicycle. You may have to walk. You may have to walk for miles just to get to this person's home where this house church is meeting. But anyways, let's just say that it's the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m, and so you start to make your way over there to your friend's house who lives a few miles down the road, and you don't really have a way to get there except to ride your bike. So you hop on your bike, you're riding your bike, and you're trying to steer clear of anybody else who might be out and about that time of the night, because it very well could be police officer, it could be somebody in the military. Over in China, they've got patrols through the countryside as well at all times of the day. So in the book, these folks are all going to meet at a house church at somebody's house. And so just picture, if you will, you've managed to make it to your friend's house where this house church is going to take place. And it took you a while to get there. You had to do it in the secrecy of the night. You had to do it very quietly, and you finally made it. You made it over to this person's house. There are a number of other people there. I don't know, we'll say maybe 10 other people there, and we'll say that there's probably a few other ones that you're not familiar with. Might be a few new faces there that you don't recognize. But hey, this is good news, right? It's good news that there are new people there, that there are new faces there, that the gospel is being spread underneath the curtain of communism in China. So the Bible study starts. Only one person's got a Bible, though, because Bibles are super hard to come by. So the person who's got the Bible opens it up, decides they're going to read a little bit. So they start reading the Word to the people that are gathered around. Now, the lights are all out except for one small candle that's burning in the middle of the floor. They've got just a little candle sitting so that everyone can see each other and so that they can see enough to be able to read the Bible. But again, because they don't want to draw attention to their homes, they've got all of the lamps turned off. Everything is turned off to make it look from the outside as if it's dark and there's not really anything going on inside. Okay, all of a sudden, as the Bible's being read, there's a very loud bang at the door, right? You don't know what's going on. You have no idea. All you know is somebody's banging at the door. And that was pretty unheard of. Again, because that's making a lot of noise. You wouldn't want to be drawing attention, doing anything that could draw attention. So immediately, I would imagine you would be kind of tense. You'd be fearful. What's going on? So you hear shouting, banging and shouting from outside until the door breaks in. And from the outside in come a couple of military officers. Both of them are carrying machine guns. They barge into the place and they begin asking questions. What's going on here? What is that book you're reading? Where did you get that book from? Did you know that you're not allowed to have that book? Did you know that it is not legal for churches to be meeting like this? What you guys are doing is not appropriate. And proceeding to go on and on with accusations, right? And meanwhile, you're sitting there unarmed in this room full of other believers gathered around a candle, reading the Bible, and all of a sudden now there are armed men that are harassing and threatening. Okay, so that's kind of the stage that is set during this specific portion of the book. So where it goes from here is that basically these two armed military guards, they say that they're going to give everybody a choice. If anybody is willing to deny Jesus, if anybody is willing to renounce their faith and say, you know what, forget Jesus, forget the Bible, I don't care, whatever, I'm not a follower. If anybody would say that, then the military guys said, you know what, if you're willing to do that, you can go. You can run out the door and you will never see us again and we will never see you again, or else it will be bad news. But you'll get a free pass this time. You can go. Just renounce Christ. That's it. That's all you have to do. Deny Jesus, and you'll live. But if you refuse to deny Jesus, if in fact you say that you do believe that Jesus is the Christ and that you are a follower of Jesus, then you need to go over to this side of the room. Make your choice. And so somebody murmurs and says, well, if we stay and say we believe and we go over to this side of the room, what's going to happen? The military guy shoots a bullet up into the ceiling and says, I'm going to kill you. What would you do in a situation like that? That's what I asked myself. I said, Adam, if you were in that room, what would you have said? What would you have done? Do you really believe in Jesus? Do you believe in him enough to put your life on it? To bet your life on it? Do you really believe? And it was at that moment that I started to question my faith and question the way that I've been living, because I had not been living as a follower of Jesus. If you would have asked me if I was a Christian, I would have said yes. But in all reality, I wasn't doing the things Christians do. I wasn't believing in Jesus. I wasn't walking with him, following him. I wasn't obeying him. I wasn't loving him or my neighbor. I was out for me. I was out for fun and for good times and for what felt good. And I didn't really think twice about anything else. So at this point, as I'm trying to come back into my faith and into a relationship with God and to try to learn more by reading the Bible, I'm confronted with this scene from this book that I'm reading. And it really, really made me think. And I said, I said to myself, Adam, when it comes to putting your faith in Jesus, it's not like a plan B safety net, just in case there really is an eternity and just in case there really is a heaven and a hell. Jesus will be your kind of plan B. You don't think that it's probably true. You don't really believe, but you've got it in your back pocket, right? Just in case. Get out of jail free emergency card in the event that there really is an afterlife and an eternity, right? And that's not how it works. When we believe in Jesus and we accept him into our hearts and we believe the things that he said and the things that he did, that's not a plan B. That is our only hope, right? If I'm trusting in Jesus and I end up dying and Jesus wasn't real and Jesus, the whole thing was just made up, if that's the case, I am out of luck because I have nothing else to go on. I have nothing else to go on. Jesus is my only hope, period. I can't say, oh, well, I did enough good works to earn it. I can't say any of that. Jesus is my only and absolute final hope. And when these thoughts started to kind of go back and forth through my mind, I tried to picture myself in that room and really think about what I would do. Would I go stand over on the side of the room with the people who refuse to renounce Christ? Would I be willing to take a bullet and have my life be over for it? Did I believe that strongly in it? And at that point, I didn't really know what my answer would have been. After pondering it for a while, I would have liked to have thought that I would have gone over to that side of the room with the other true believers, the ones who were basically awaiting death. But, until it actually happens, you really never know, right? A lot of times we think we know what we would do in a given situation until we're put in that situation. And then we're like, wow, I thought I was going to do so-and-so, but it ain't that easy. So as you continue reading this book that I'm referring to, right, as you move on through the book and you move through the scene in the book, it ends up getting to a point where, there are a certain number of true believers that are over on this one side of the room that are basically awaiting execution. And then you've got another, few people that ran out the door and they said they were going to renounce Christ. They ran and they were gone. They didn't even look back. They were long gone. So after that happens and you're expecting the guards to get the guns and raise them up and start shooting people, what actually happens is these two guards, these two military guys, they're actually incognito. They're not real Chinese military. They were actually believers who had somehow gotten a hold of military uniforms and dressed up like that with the purpose of weeding out the spies that were trying to infiltrate their underground church, right? So essentially, those people who were willing to deny Christ and get up and run, by doing that, what they said, without saying it, is, hey, we don't actually believe. We're actually government spies that are sent here to keep an eye on what's going on. And if this thing gets too big, then we're going to come bring down a whole bunch of firepower and just take this whole thing out, right? So that was kind of a sly, sneaky sort of way for these believers to set up sort of a test to weed out the people who were there with ill motives. So it ends up working itself out in a very happy ending, this story within the book. The book is full of all kinds of other twists and turns and ground shaking, destiny questioning stuff for these two main characters. And it's very interesting to see how these two guys parted ways after college, and then to see how God kind of weaves their lives back together to make a beautiful tapestry out of it. But there's a lot of action in the book. There's a lot of suspense. There's a lot of sitting on the edge of your seat, and I would highly recommend it. Not only because it is very entertaining and relatively wholesome book, a Christian fiction novel, but there's also a whole lot to be gleaned from it just by means of biblical principles. And there are sure to be times in the book that are going to make you stop and think. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I don't want to take up too much more time. But yeah, the book is called Safely Home. It's by Randy Alcorn. And if you are like me and you've got an Audible membership, I love listening to audiobooks. I drive around a lot, especially at work. So when I'm driving, if I don't feel like listening to music, I'll crank on an audiobook and off I go. I'm all set till I get to my destination. So I've got like hundreds, probably 500 or 600 audiobooks over the years that I've downloaded. So if you guys have Audible, I believe it is on Audible, and you can use one of your credits to download it and check it out. See if you like it. I highly recommend it. But thank you guys so much for letting me share this little story with you about how God used this book, Safely Home, to allow me to question my faith and ultimately to deepen and strengthen my faith. So I just want you guys to go about your day and think about that today. How much do you believe what you really believe? Do you believe it enough that you'd be willing to put your life on it? Because ultimately, as Christians, as little Christs, that is what we are doing by definition. We're saying that, look, we understand that we have no way to get to heaven. We have no way to be reconciled to a holy and righteous God. We have no chance at all. Our only chance is through Jesus. He is the truth. He is the way, right? He's the only way, not one of many ways. So when we come to faith in Christ and trust Him for our salvation and trust Him to make us right with God and to bridge this massive gap that sin has created, when we trust Him, what we're saying is, I believe and I bet my life on it. So friends, I encourage you, continue on about your day to day. Get out of your comfort zone. You know, I've said that before and I'll say it again. I encourage you, just like I encourage myself, to get out of your comfort zone, right? Say hello and try to strike up a conversation with a stranger that you normally wouldn't feel comfortable, saying anything to. Try to share your faith with a coworker that you're friends with, but who may not know that you're a believer. Just do something to get out of your comfort zone so that you can love somebody today, so that you can share the word of God with somebody today. Give somebody an encouraging text message that you wouldn't normally. Send somebody a text message and say, how goes it with your soul? Just anything. Just get out of your comfort zone and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So thank you so much for being here, guys. And until we meet again, deuces.